Hey, I'm Aksharika,
And I'm JJ.
and we're building Lawgical.
And our tool fills USCIS forms in under 30 seconds.
And we're here today with Kevin, our very early customer. And we wanted to ask him a few questions about why he chose the product and how he's using AI in his workflows. It's nice to have you on this video.
Thanks, Aksharika, and thanks, JJ. And yeah, it's nice to be able to talk about how AI is really changing how we do our day-to-day work, particularly in immigration law.
Yeah, so Kevin, what's prompted you to start using AI in your firm, and what tools have you been using?
Yeah, well, we primarily in the firm started with research and then started looking at ways that we could actually help with developing the cases themselves. Obviously collecting data and form filling, that kind of thing. And I think it's when we started looking at that particularly that Lawgical came to mind.
Yeah. What do you think makes our product stand apart from the other tools you've explored?
We really gain a lot of efficiency. I think that's where you're able to extract information from documents that you're going to use later, and then get that information directly into a form. It's really a big plus, something that we've actually wanted to have for quite a while.
Yeah,
Awesome.
very glad to hear.
One of the first things I noticed about Lawgical is it's very clean. The interface, something that I really look for is ease of use that's built into a software product. And once I see that, then I feel like the productivity claims are something that we can actually achieve, because one of the main things with any tool is ramping up and learning how to use it. Yeah, usability, and also not having to remember a process that how did I do that before? I mean, that takes a lot of time, and it takes somebody having to answer that question. And I didn't really see any of that. Everything was very straightforward. And also the flows, the workflows to do particular things are very normal and expected. So that was the first thing I noticed. The other thing that I like is that adding features is kind of simple. It's there are some features there that haven't been filled in yet, but I like the fact that, hey, that's coming, and so when it is available, I sort of look forward to being able to use it.
Yeah, we definitely strive for that transparency. Like, there's so much potential of improvement in workflows in immigration and even beyond, that we just want to show what the tool could be capable of, so that it's easy for people to request access to any of the coming soon features, and tell us that they have interest in some of the features that are coming up.
Yeah, and a lot of the simplicity in the design really comes from AK, because she's a product designer. So both of us really try to make sure it's like as simple as we can make it, and we try to take away stuff and like just kind of do it in the background. So yeah, we definitely.
Yeah, and you're from Apple, so I feel like it's just like grilled into your brain. Simplicity is key.
Yeah,
and I don't feel like there's necessarily things that are needed that are removed, because sometimes you feel like the blank slate is a little too blank. It's like, well, you're coming to it and you're saying, well, this is more complicated than they have it, but so much is going on under the covers. And I think that's the thing about AI, is that a lot of the benefit of it is that things that you were assumed to have to think about before, you don't have to think about now. The software takes care of it, the technology takes care of it, and so that's really something you see right away.
Absolutely. I also loved what you said about it improves productivity, because you have to think less about how to actually use the tool.
Right. And that's really, that is a requirement now.
Could you tell me a little bit more about how you've adopted AI in more of your day-to-day operations as a firm, and how our product may have helped contribute to a positive change?
Yeah, we're constantly trying to streamline processes. Right now I have a team of 3 folks, 2 of which are experienced paralegals and 1 is a legal assistant. And what we try to do is to make each of their jobs easier. And a lot of that, it takes time to establish processes, and so it helps to have a tool that sort of manages the process for you. And so what we're able to do now with the tools that Lawgical provides is we take documents from our clients and we enter those once, and then the data is put into the forms in that process, as opposed to having the assistant first enter the data and then having the paralegals go through and look at the forms and see whether everything matches up. And you're saving a lot of going back and forth through that process. Now, I hate to say push button, but push a couple buttons and then you're in a situation where you have a completed form and you haven't spent all that time doing the extraction and doing the checking and all of that.
How much time do you think it would take before, let's say, using our tool and after?
Well, I mean, it's hard. So the time, you're looking at cutting out at least half of the time that you would spend previously. Okay. The goal is to get better than that. The goal is to get it down to, I would say, about a tenth of the time that you would spend. I mean, at that point, then you're really getting a large gain in productivity. But even half is nice. The other thing is you have a reliable process and a repeatable process. What we do a lot of times, sort of pre-AI, is we give the clients access through our forms generation package. We allow them access to an online version of the form, and then they put the data in there. So you really have two areas: them putting their own data in, so we don't have to validate it or anything. I mean, we do validate it later, but we don't have to wonder about whether that's really what the client wants in the data. And then that immediately goes into the form. So you don't have a questionnaire that's handwritten or them taking that as you're not doing that. And so then with the Lawgical example, you really don't even have that step unless, say, what you wanted to do was to take documents, generate the forms, and then have the client review the forms with you. That already reduces the time and the effort involved a lot.
Yeah.
We go through a lot of situations where you have one client who's very organized, and you have another client who's not organized at all.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to sort of bring them into the same process rather than spending a lot more time on one and less on another. So we give them a list of documents, they get the documents to us, and then once we have the documents, going from that step to the form step is really streamlined.
How much time did it take you to do this entire process before, Lawgical or even AI tools?
I mean, it's a good question, but a lot of the time is in that process that I was just suggesting, and that is, for some people, it's you ask them once, you ask them again, and so that's really sort of on us to nail down. It's what are we expecting from you as a client? So that's where a lot of the time comes in, the actual elapsed time, I guess is what I'm thinking of. In terms of the time that it takes for us, it's probably, if we have everything, probably a couple of hours of paralegal and assistant time. But with folks that aren't that organized, it can take weeks.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes weeks anyway. So what you try to do is you try to have a pipeline of things that are in process, things that are coming in, and things that are done. I think where this comes in is that we can call a case pretty much done faster. For us, it's faster. So for example, if we're waiting for a document from one client, we can go and move to another case, and then that one can sit, that's fine, but we're not constantly going back and forth with it.
Yeah.
So you can handle a little bit of a higher caseload? I think that, so the potential to handle, kind of like I was thinking, twice as much, I think, off the bat, and then once things are more streamlined, then more than that. The thing is that this is the issue for all firms. You can't just start accepting more cases. You have to have more than, for me, I mean, if I'm taking any more than twice as much work now, I'm going to need another attorney, I'm going to need probably 2 more paralegals. So that's certainly a goal. And I think the key here is that I can't reach that goal without tools. I can't reach that goal without better tools that we can implement in a better process.
Yeah, spot on.
Have there been any unexpected benefits of using AI in your firm that you've noticed?
Yeah, I keep going back to this process thing, but I think normalizing processes is the benefit that we get. Everybody gets to sort of see the same picture of a matter or a case, and the more of that we have, the better we are at evaluating where a case is in our process, knowing what's there and what's not there. That's something that the tools, so something like Lawgical, it's designed that way. It's, you can look very quickly at something and say, oh, I have this and I don't have that. And I don't think we really could see that kind of benefit without AI. Another area is actually in evaluating cases. Sometimes even before you have a case on hand, you can plug what you know into an AI tool and it will more or less give you an evaluation. I mean, it's not like what we do when we give a client an evaluation, which brings in all of our background and everything, but it's kind of an automatic thing. It's sort of like, well, what is the picture of this client's profile? What is the picture of what they can do? The other thing is it opens other areas to your practice. So I have clients who are involved directly with AI and building AI tools. And so for me to be using an AI-based tool is an advantage in terms of me seeing what one application area and one area that's very hot in terms of development, how that area is progressing, what are some of the factors involved. It's something that's kind of exciting coming from a software background. I like seeing how these tools actually help people do their jobs, and so for me it's helpful in me understanding my client's area of expertise.
You said plugging the immigrant's documents and seeing case evaluation. Have you tried that with any of these tools like Gemini or ChatGPT?
And
does it do a good job?
Yeah, exactly. And so this is the thing, and actually I can give you sort of an example in terms of research. I have a tool that I use that's ChatGPT based, but it goes further than that. But it's research primarily and some drafting. Okay. And so using the tool, GPT-4 based answers, I can just tell you it gave me the wrong answer in terms of, not like a hallucination kind of thing, but it was misleading. It was correct based on the language in the case, in this particular case. But when you look at the way the law has been interpreted, not just sort of since then, but sort of based on how this particular law is applied, to commit to that would have been a complete mistake. So I'm using that as an example of how AI can be very misleading in that sense. So, but where it's helpful, and actually that was helpful too, because I looked at it and I was skeptical and I said, well, is that right? And then after going deeper into it, I said, well, that's not really right at all, but it gave me a case. It gave me, a way to look into what more was happening. And that's kind of the thing I think with these threads with AI, the whole idea that asking a question leads to another question, and then that can lead you to a better answer. That whole process is really very enlightening.
Yeah. It's definitely not maybe correct all the time, but I've heard it's good to use it maybe as like a brainstorming or like a thought partner. You just ask it stuff and it suggests stuff, and it's pretty good in that regard.
It probes you in the right direction.
And also and also the questions that come from, so you'll get a response, and this is one of the things about prompting that is helpful. You're not done after you get the response. You get the response, and then if you get other things to consider, other questions to ask, then you really start to get into where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned something earlier about how it helps you do your job better, and I want to touch base on that. There's obviously a lot of skepticism around AI across many industries about how it's sort of going to be taking away jobs. Did you feel any skepticism when adapting these AI tools in your practice, and did you feel like it would take away jobs for either you or your paralegals in any way?
Well, I mean, for the kind of work we do, I don't see it taking anybody's job away. I think there are certain tasks that really don't need to be done, and other tasks that are sort of introduced by the potential of it. One of the things that we've talked about, and that I use the standard tools, ChatGPT, for example, is correspondence. Write me a letter to say X to Y client, considering that they did Z. And I mean, the content generated is almost ready to use. So, and the nice thing about that is that we, as attorneys, like we spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. Well, how should I say this to this client? And what is it exactly that I want to get said? And, that's like the half hour,
Yeah, those are
45
like brain
minutes.
power that you kind of spend like thinking about how to phrase things.
Exactly, exactly. And it's sort of like, it's not necessary, and the thing is, like, you go through, you want to put your own, obviously, your own voice into it. You want to sort of adapt it to you and to your practice and to your client.
Yeah.
But, that's one area where, I mean, you could do, 50 of these in a personalized way, extracting data, or you can have an assistant do it. I mean, this is the thing. I have to be honest, I struggle. I have a remote virtual assistant. I mean, everybody's remote except me. And so, the two paralegals and my legal assistant, and I sometimes have trouble finding things for her to do. Now, she does all of the regular billing, like twice a month. She handles all the billing, all the invoicing, all things that are critical. But I'm always thinking, boy, I wish I had her do this, or I wish I had her do that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of firms like, what is he talking about? We have like 5 people that just do
Yeah.
management. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
Or data entry.
yeah, no, exactly. Well, and that's kind of the thing. It's like I'm happy not to have her doing a lot of that with a tool that can extract that.
So Kevin, do you have any concerns about using AI on your firm?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is, the idea that the data that's coming out of your AI tool may not be reliable. There's that. But the other thing is just generally people's concern about data security, and we do look into how our data is processed with all of our tools. But the reality is that there are potential issues with any type of system that you're using, and it's no more there with AI than any other. There's the highest level of government type security of any system can still be breached. There can still be leaks.
Yeah.
So and clients are not nearly as concerned about this as we are. I mean, I've never had anybody ask. Of course, here I am saying never, and then tomorrow I'm going to get a call. But I've never had a client, overly concerned about, is my data protected? We do protect it as best we can. We have PCI standards for if we ever get like credit card data. We don't maintain anything like that on paper unless it's something that we provide to USCIS, for example, in which case we have to mail forms to USCIS that has that information on it. So from our point of view, it's in a locked file drawer, but it's already gone across the country in US mail. So these are kind of things that you can't avoid, but we definitely would rather have people deal with our systems directly rather than sending them around the internet or in any way that would cause them to have an issue with security.
Yeah. So when you use these tools, how much due diligence do you do about like how they handle data and the security practices that they employ?
Well, we do look into what their standards are in terms of where the
data stored,
yes,
security practices.
Yeah, exactly. And we can only go so far with that, but we do want to see a minimal level. I just mentioned that we use a particular tool for forms generation and also some database stuff. And they had a leak. It was sort of an unintentional thing that happened. It wasn't actually a leak of data, it was a leak of a notification, but the notification had a lot of information in it that shouldn't have gone outside of the client. So that was a big issue for them. I'm sure they've remediated that, and I'm sure that's fine. They do have single sign-on dual
multi-factor
MFA. Thank you. And it's kind of a hassle because like once a month I have to go on and do that again. But it's just another level of security.
Yeah, at Lawgical, we also take data security very seriously. We have like multiple layers of security on our tech stack. So we have passwordless sign-in, so you don't really need a password. You just need like an email. So basically, if your Gmail or if your Microsoft Outlook is hacked, then they could get access to your Lawgical account. But if that is secure, there's no way to hack Lawgical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have a far bigger problem at hand if that happens.
Yeah, then they have access to like your whole life, basically. We also have security at the API level. Data in transit is encrypted. Data at rest is encrypted. Our data stored in AWS. Our database even has like security policies in place so that only a law firm can access their own data. They can't access like another law firm's data. It's like written in the rules of like the database. So yeah, we definitely take security very seriously at Lawgical.
Yeah, and I mean that kind of transparency is important, definitely. And I think more tools like this are moving to passwordless.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's something that everybody has to kind of catch up with. The level of, I mean, I do use a password manager myself, but you know, I have my passwords that predated the password manager, and then I have the password for my password manager. You know, and so many of the breaches that happen now are due to bad practices that people have in their own networks, and so people need to take this stuff more seriously.
I heard even like after all this, you know, like awareness of, you know, making your password secure, like the most common password is still password.
And
with the @
or a 0 for the. There's always that hope that, hey, I'm not big enough yet that they're hacking me. You know, but it's, you know, law firms are a target. And that's actually something. I mean, it's obviously larger firms, but yeah, so we have to be very careful.
I have a rather hot take about just the future of how like client data is managed in law firms. Like, just if I were to really simplify my opinion, it's easier for an individual to manage their own data as opposed to a law firm managing thousands of immigrants' data.
Oh, absolutely.
So if there's a way to just decentralize this so that immigrants manage their own data, whether they're moving from one employer to the other or from one law firm to the other, perhaps there's a future where law firms don't need to keep their case data.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have two sides to it, really. I mean, you've got the, in the field of employment-based, right? You have the employer's data versus the employee's data. The employer's data, obviously that stays with them. The employee's data for some of these large firms that are employed by the employer hired by the employer to work these cases, they don't give the employees any access to it. So it's in that field, it's kind of, it would be liberating, definitely, for them to be able to come to the situation, and this is in the case of large employers mainly, because we get a lot of employees come to us and say, hey, I want you to do this case for me, and this is the company, it's a small company, they don't have the resources, or they're not hiring the resources, so can you help? And so that's a lot of the business that we do anyway. But yeah, it's, law firms, I think, are sort of in the habit of wanting everything centralized, feeling like that control is better. But I agree. I think it's, at the very least, I think these firms, once somebody, say, is ready to move on or laid off or whatever, they should just share that data with the employees.
And regardless, like the data is redundant after a certain point. You change addresses, your passport, you know, gets updated. Like, how long do you plan on keeping this data for?
I think especially in that environment, there is this assumption that, oh, well, you know, they're at the end of their, as an example, at the end of their 6 years on their H-1B, and they're going to move on in another category, or their green card came through, you know, they're so lucky, right? But all of this happens, and then you have to expect that things are going to change. You have to expect that there's going to be new data. So this sort of frozen, and you know, we're stuck in this situation like where we're still doing filings of paper. And I saw one today from a colleague, and she's got 1,500 pages of an EB-1A filing. I don't even know how you get that in the box.
Oh my God.
You know, that's 2 boxes, and how do you make sure they go together? I don't know.
That's just a meme waiting to happen.
And that's by definition static. I mean, one of the things we do when we do interviews and family cases primarily is the first thing they want to know is, well, what's changed since you filed? Well, a lot. Let me tell you.
Have you experienced any sort of need for this expansive learning curve when adopting new technologies, given like the speed at which everybody's building AI tools?
Well, so actually when I was doing this myself, I had a tool previously that I had learned to use pretty well. And of course, this is before AI tools. But once I started to grow and add staff, I needed something that wasn't going to take the time that it took for me to learn the tool I was using. And even though I liked it and how it performed, I started looking for a new tool for that specific reason. And now it's like I won't bring something in unless it's easy to use.
Yeah.
And so that it can't have a significant learning curve. And even the kind of thing where, well, we provide training. It's like, well, why?
Yeah.
How did you or do you overcome the costs of using AI tools?
When you're small, you have to keep those to a minimum. And so I think because these are new technologies, you do have to be a smart shopper in terms of where you want to spend your money. There's a wide range. I've seen some products that do a lot are several $1,000s, and other a month. Okay,
Wow.
we're talking about monthly.
Yeah.
And other products that only do specific things, really in the three figures, lower three figures range. So, and I mean that's manageable for most firms. So yeah, I mean, I can only spend from each bucket that I have a technology bucket and marketing and promotion bucket. That's the one that seems to overflow.
Yeah.
Because you can't really cut back on that.
Yeah. Well, this was really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. If you have any closing remarks.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I'm just excited about what Lawgical is doing and about how we can, apply these advances, technological and process-wise, to helping more clients and helping them more efficiently. It's exciting.
Cool.
Yeah,
It's been a pleasure, really.
Yeah,
Thanks
me
for
too.
your time.
All right, you guys.
Thank you so much.